Well, hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Becky Holm-Johansen, and tonight we're going to be talking about finding the root cause of problems. You might think, well, that's a pretty broad and general way, but we're going to focus on our journey for health, happiness, and productivity, because a healthy body, healthy mind produces the best outcomes for us. So today we're going to be what did you say I have to do? Oh yes, this one.
You have to move the mouse to the arrow.
Move the mouse to the arrow. Oh my Lord. Here we go. Dr. B with technology here. Oh no, that's too many times. So my little poker didn't work. We had to go to old tech computer here. Anyway, we'll make it work. So we can always ask the question, how has your journey been, or how do you perceive your health journey has going? And being in practice for over 25 years, we've come across a lot of different scenarios. We've had our own personal health journeys. That's typically what fuels, I think, your passion to learn, is that things aren't always just paved and flat and easy going. Sometimes we have valleys to cross and mountains to climb. And we don't always understand why that's put in our path, but it definitely can. Sometimes that's kind of how mine felt. I thought this was like, it was like what it was and what it was going to was a little rocky, then you kind of coasted for a while, and all of a sudden you realized you had to climb some big mountains. And so I was considering going through my whole health journey, but that's kind of boring. Not really, but it's kind of like, that would probably take up 45 minutes. However, we can simplify it and just say that at a young age, I grew up on a farm in North Dakota. Like I said, I've been a chiropractor for 25 years, and I've just recently been introduced to nutrition response testing. Actually, not recently, it's been over 10 years. But I was just slow to adapt. Do we have slow adapters here? I'm kind of like a middle of the road person, take it easy. But as I look back at my life journey, I grew up on a farm, and there was, that's when Roundup was very just introduced. And surprise, surprise, both my mom and I, she was 30 and I was 10, we both ended up with hypothyroidism. And my brother had severe allergies, and my other sister had severe egg allergies. And then I ended up with mono and became very sick. And so I always joke that I was eating like Advil or Tylenol, like Skittles, because then we were both in a car accident. So there's all these things that happen in our life, and not just one or two, but many of them. So you have traumas and you have the chemicals, and you don't piece it together right away, but hindsight has a way of being 20/20. So long story short, then when you fast forward, I find chiropractic, it's a beautiful thing. I find my husband, he's in chiropractic school, and we begin our journey as health practitioners back in 2000 here in Loveland. So and we were just taught simply that when there's subluxations in the body, when the spine isn't aligned properly, the nervous system can't function. And while that is core, it is essential to having your body work properly, there's other things that can cause the body to be disrupted. And so one of the things, and we're going to get to, I'm jumping ahead a wee bit, but this next slide, I like to start with core beliefs, that you have to start somewhere, because a lot of times we're told that our body is broken. We're told that our body just turns on itself for autoimmune disease. It just it's dumb. It doesn't react. It's just doing it just because. And really, your body is so smart. Your nervous system controls every function in your body, to the point of that's how we adapt. It's these environmental signals that then tell that our nervous system is able to process in our brain to then make the proper hormone or do the proper fight or flight or whatever it needs to do. And I believe that our body is not broken, and our default setting is to be well. The body has the capacity and tools inside to be well, and we all have a knowing. I don't know, you got the gut, you just knew it wasn't right, or you just knew that you needed to either be away or towards whatever that thing was. I think that knowing has been pushed aside, and that doctors know best, and that it is what it is, and it's a diagnosis, and that's what you have, and that becomes your identity sometimes. Or there's just no hope, and we could just treat the symptoms. That's what was told to me with the Hashimoto's and the autoimmune, and then later on infertility. And I was like, you know what? I got to a point where I was like, no. So I got adjusted like pretty much 2/3 of my whole life, but maybe there's other things that I need to maybe support or look at. And I really thought my thyroid was a big key as to why things weren't working properly. And so when you have that ticking clock, ladies, you know, I don't know if you know that, but it's like you're getting older, and now all of a sudden your 20s go by, your 30s go by, now you're in your 40s, and you don't have that child yet. It's like it motivates you to really do some things. So that's when I started doing cleanses and kind of dipping my toe into the nutrition. And then I was blessed to have a really good friend take me to the side and show me what nutrition response testing was. And it was a long time till I incorporated it into my practice. You know her, Dr. Lauren. Mm-hmm. So the body never does anything without a reason. The body is always perceptive of what's going on, and symptoms are a cry for help. Now sometimes we have to address symptomatology. Sometimes, you know, when our neck is hurting so bad or our stomach is so upset, there are products and things that we can do to help balance that down, but we need to get to the root cause of what's going on. And so we have to look at, there we go, we call it the triangle of health. And that is physical, chemical, and emotional or spiritual. So we have structural, physical. We can understand how we get in a car accident, we're rear-ended, ligaments get strained and sprained, nerves get irritated. We have to work on that to correct that. Or maybe it's a repetitive type of thing that's happening because we're on our phone or we're on a computer or what have you. Still the same, it's a structural, physical. That's kind of easy to understand. That's how it was for me. Made pretty much sense. That's really why we use the Gonstead technique in our practice. It's very structural, it's very analytical, black and white, right and left, EX, IN, all the things of, really does, patients don't care, but us chiropractors do, because that's how we have specific adjustments for each and every one of you, because everybody's different. That's what keeps it exciting every day. But then there's the nutritional component, and we just thought for a while, we were told maybe we can just adjust that away. You just need the adjustment. And I found out you need a little bit more. You need a properly functioning nervous system, so your body knows what to do with that that nutritional product. But then there's also an emotional and a spiritual component, and that emotions, I'm learning, can be just as devastating. Trauma. I was speaking with a principal today, and I was like, you know, we never really talk a lot. I told her, she's been a patient for a long time, you know, physical, chemical, emotional. We just say it so quick and it's all ooh la la, and it's just, you know, kind of this abstract thing. But the emotional traumas that people experience do get stuck, because trauma or emotional, we're all energy. We're all on the anatomical level, we're more space than we are a thing, and we're all energetic beings. And so, if you don't believe me, if you've ever had sciatica, there's nerves zapping you. There's electrical going through your body. That's what it is. Or, so our whole body's energetic. And I really wanted to, Sierra, I really wanted to dive into Einstein's theory of relativity and Sir Isaac Newton, and to prove that we haven't even touched, you know, the quantum physics that's going on, that they're just not even teaching. So, but in order to, and basically what I'm gonna say is everything is energy. Everything. Everything is energy. And emotions are things, because they're energetically things, and you can hold on to them and trap them in your body. But that is a talk for another day that I believe that we will be having, because I was talking with this teacher. She goes, oh, heck yeah, that is so true. We see a lot of young children, victims or really bad things happening to them. She goes, they hold on to that trauma. And I'm like, there's a way to release that. But again, that's a talk for another day, and I'll learn about that more I'll share it once I learn a little bit more about that. However, today I'm gonna work on this leg of the triangle, and is the nutritional chemical component, because I was originally going to go into organic chemistry or chemical engineering. And then I realized I really didn't like being in a lab, and I like people a whole lot more. However, our body is a huge chemical factory. You ever hear about the Krebs cycle? We were taught that that's what generates ATP. It also produces water. It also produces a cleansing process for our liver and for all the mechanisms to go on. we took a seminar or class on that in school. Never really understood it, but our body is a chemical factory, so you need the proper nutrients to grow, rest, and repair, but you also have to have the proper nutrients to get rid of all the toxicities that just happen naturally. You've heard of oxidization, right? That's bad. And it oxidizes our cells and makes us old and gray. But there is those processes that need to be handled, and if they're not in balance and supported, there's sometimes deficiencies that can show up, and therefore can cause dis-ease or a lack of ease in our body. And we talk about that. Who has been to the Vital Shift workshop? Dr. John talks about ease, probably, or maybe he has. I haven't been to one of his talks in a while, but I know he talks about the physical, chemical, and emotional, and the ease of the body. And we are greater than the sum of its parts. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So, where am I going with this? Well, we have to ask, if we try to do everything, we try to balance everything, and we do yoga, and we eat good, and we try to get good sleep, and we don't listen to that cell phone, and we don't have the earbuds in our ears radiating our brain, but yet I'm still not doing well, or I'm still sick, or I'm still having this problem. We have to ask, why is 1 in 5 have autoimmune disease? Why is obesity so rampant in our civilization? Why is autism on the rise? That's actually, I've heard statistics as of in 2 more years, it might be 1 in 32. It's like, what is going on? Like, what is it, right? So can we just blame one thing? I think it's a combination of a lot of things that's leading to a kind of a perfect storm. 1 in 10 with diabetes, and testosterone is on the decline. We see that. We see that all around. So there's some of the websites, and I can go back if you want pictures of them to reference that. But one of the things that's pointing to why this is happening, and I might want to explain what ECO 23 is up there. I was just at a conference. It's called Exceptional Clinical Outcomes 23, and they have it every year. And it's the first time I've ever been in a conference. I'm a chiropractor, so I go to chiropractic conferences, right? Or you're a nutritionist, you go to nutritional conferences. So it's the same people speaking to the choir. This was the first time I was ever rubbing shoulders with cardiologists, MDs, nutritionalists, psychiatrists, and not lay people. And they're all using nutrition response testing because they know, those medical doctors have to say, we can't just keep treating symptoms, there's more going on. And they're finding that these protocols that I'm going to talk about have made significant, not just miraculous recoveries, and which is amazing because it's getting to the root cause. So we're going to just be on one. Remember again, there's 3 causes of what we call dis-ease or subluxations, but I look at it as there's 3 areas that can be out of balance in a body that you have to address. And so if you're just structurally working on somebody, yes, that's going to help them a ton. But we found in over 20 years of experience that will take them up to a certain level, and then it'll kind of plateau. And then until they either start working out or changing another facet of their life. And isn't it hard to change everything all at once? I mean, there's only, like, think of food, and you're like, oh, I can't eat that, and I can't. If you just like scratched everything that you're doing, it would be so overwhelming that you just say, forget it, and just go back. So you just have to pick and choose, like, you know what, I'm just gonna eat more greens, and or bad habit that we used to have decades ago, I'm embarrassed to even say it, but we loved that Pepsi. Like, we didn't know it was bad for us. Oh my goodness, that's an addiction. And so little by little, and so I help people. I'm like, okay, you want to get off that pop or that diet pep. Diet's even worse. Like, just drink the regular stuff. Sugar's bad, but that diet stuff will kill you. But don't drink it. Don't drink that at all. But we just start by maybe cutting it down and having simple steps that you are not addicted to anymore. So maybe you add the fizzy water. I call it fizzy water, it's carbonated water. Or you dilute it, or you just take the baby steps to make it easy. And so we do that with a lot of things, with maybe food choices that aren't the best. But there's an epidemic of environmental toxins. And the amount of toxins, it's over millions since World War II that are everywhere in our environment. And you just think about World War II. that wasn't too long ago. World War I, sorry, that was back in, a little further back, but early 1900s, right? I don't have the exact date, I should know it, I forgot. However, since that time, thousands and millions of toxic cubic yards of toxicities have been used, whether it's warfare or creating new products. And they're finding that the fish you're eating might contain harmful chemicals. In fact, there's also a website you can go to, and that's what I had to go find out. It's called www.ewg.com. And if you go there, you can look up beauty products, you can look up your own city's tap water and see what they're allowing in and what it's over, ewg.com. I wish I had that on there, that's why I just looked it up. But they're now giving warnings, and in fact, how many fish you can eat. And I was raised in North Dakota, you just went out and lived off the land. Like you could hunt and fish, and you never thought about the mercury toxicity, but there's mining in those mountains of ours over there. And that goes downstream. And I'm not against that, but I'm for clean water and clean air. And I want my kids to be able to fish and eat and hunt and eat, use that. But do not eat fish from Clark's Marsh. So this was an EPA proposes changes to this atrazine label. And basically, they're endocrine disrupting chemicals linked to higher diabetes risk in white women. Endocrine disrupting chemicals. So you think, how else is that affecting our society right now? What else is it doing? And our world has become very toxic to everyone. There's no longer just local exposures to a few. I mean, what just happened on the eastern part of the United States when the train derailed, right? Like, oh, it's okay, guys, let's just blow it up. And then they're in there with their hazmat suits. And it's seeping into the water, and the water's boiling. I'm like, that's not right. So there's chemicals everywhere. And I'm not here to be the alarmist, because we want to offer solutions too. So just so you know, there's solutions to this. But you have to be aware of what you're doing, and what you're drinking, and what you're eating, and what you're putting into your body. And so, environmental toxins are needing more and more awareness. The biggest one that I found that was disturbing is an endocrine disruptor, because that hit home to me. When your thyroid doesn't work, you're tired, your immune system is down, and you can gain a lot of weight, or the hyper goes the other way. But it can and it affects fertility. So that was like, excuse me, I'm raised around this, and nobody said anything. Nobody made us aware. Oh, just take some Synthroid and treat the symptoms. I heard that my whole life. I fired a lot of endocrine doctors when I was trying to get pregnant with our kids, because I just wasn't going to treat the symptom anymore. I'm like, there's got to be a reason. Honey, just increase your thyroid, it's fine. I'm like, you'll get pregnant eventually. Well, I didn't until I had to go back and read my own records. But again, I wasn't going to digress, but you get mama upset, and that's not okay. So where do you find these endocrine disruptors? They're found in plastics, detergents, pesticides, herbicides. They interfere with the hormones and cause developmental and reproductive issues. Reproduction is a huge booming business. I mean, I'm the oldest of 5 kids in my family. It was like my dad would look at my mom and she'd be pregnant. That was the joke back in the day. And it's not so much anymore. I mean, you see couples struggling with fertility a lot, and it's a very private matter. You don't go announcing, well, I'm trying to get pregnant, everybody. You don't say that to people. You just attend the showers, and you attend with a happy face. And so that's an emotional component that can be part of that too. Another environmental toxin that I would learn about is something called forever chemicals. These chemicals they're per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. That's a big word. They're PFAS. You'll see this, PFAS. And so these are used to make waterproof and stain resistant, and do not break down in the environment, and can accumulate in the body and cause health issues. They are forever chemicals because they're never breaking down. So it's a non-natural chemicals. I was really upset because I like tech gear. My kids love tech gear. Those are part of the PFAS, are in those chemicals. Maybe they make, it's not cotton. Remember the commercials back in the day, pure as cotton, and that's a natural plant plant fiber. So the waterproof, the stain resistance, and all that stuff. And then pesticides and herbicides, obviously, I was just in North Dakota last year over at harvest time, and they were harvesting peas, and it had been a fairly wet year. I go, gosh, how'd you get them so dry so fast? He goes, well, you spray Roundup on them. It's a desiccant. It just kills the plant and it dries out, and then you can harvest it. And I'm like, you sprayed that? He goes, oh, it's been sprayed probably 5 times this year. You spray it before you seed, you spray it right after to kill the weeds, and you keep spraying it. And then he goes, and then it gets bad sometimes where it doesn't, it's Roundup resistant. I go, well, then what do? He goes, you don't want to know what we have to use. And I went, oh, I am not eating dried peas anymore. Like, I was like, so then there's the whole organic thing. You're like, well, is it really organic? And that Roundup can just, but, you know, I'd rather take something that's maybe in the air, and that's a whole other talk that we could get into. Have you ever noticed that the skies are a little different lately? Doesn't that make you so mad? You just see the trails. And, you know, you just see them. They're crisscross, and it's like, oh, there's a grid, and then, you know, this clouds over weird. There's actually more, they've actually so we have a 3rd grader, and we've been homeschooling, and there's like all the different types of clouds. You know, you do the worksheet, you know, you get the cirrus clouds, you get the cumulus clouds. Now there's 24 different types of clouds. They changed the names of the clouds to reflect what's going on. And so what do you think they're spraying? A lot of aluminum byproducts. Gasoline and the jet fuels has been changed to have all these high amounts of these types of things. So what's a good way to get people sick? Well, put something in the air that affects their lungs. That's all I'm gonna say about that. So,
Here.
yeah, it's, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. But you know, it makes sense. It's like, you make a lot of money keeping people sick versus healthy. You really do. And then you get on that sick care cycle, and it can be very expensive. And then just treating the symptoms, not really getting to a cause, that can be, you know, leading to cancer, reproductive issues, other health issues. So I told my kids, I have a neighbor, I love him, and if he's watching, I'm sorry, but he's using his Roundup, and it's sprayed into my garden, and I told my son, I'm like, don't pick that dill that's curled up, because that's been, I don't want to say gassed off, but the spray trickled over to our garden. So we make sure we pick all the things so that he doesn't have to spray. In fact, I'm gonna send my son, I'm like, we'll pick your weeds for you so you don't have to spray over here. I'm that crazy lady. So how is it an endocrine disrupting chemical? Well, they mimic or interfere with the endocrine system. So these are biphenyl A, phthalates, dioxins, PCBs, BPAs. You've probably heard of BPAs. They used to line all the soup cans with BPA because it's slippery and then it doesn't stick. So I know this was a hard one for me too. Again, I'm probably going to overwhelm some of you, and some of you are like veterans. You're like, I knew that. Dr. B, we do that already. I know, like you're just catching up now. Oh, good, better late than never. But the type of cookware you use matters too. Ceramic's a little bit better than stainless is probably still the best, but it stinks to cook on that, doesn't it? It just sticks. So, yeah. But the Teflon stuff, that's not so good, and it scratches off in that you ingest that, and that's a disruptor. So again, it's been known and shown diabetes, obesity, thyroid, adrenal hormones. Fetuses of children are sensitive to low doses of these endocrine disruptors. The US is not very good on birth rate survival. We're not the top 3. We're down at the bottom of the whole world. And it's really scary because we have this amazing modern medical system, saves a lot of lives, but what is our health of our community? And it's not that good. So there's got to be other things that are going on as to why and what can we do. So that's why we like to use, we've changed over, again, from plastic water bottles. In a pinch, we'll drink it. But if it's been hot, I really think twice, because that heat will leach those chemicals into the water. And how do you know how it's been stored and how, you know, so we've actually gone as far as we got a whole house filtration system. Now that's an investment, but it does not remove all of the toxicities, and we've actually now got a distiller. Yeah, so that removes your chlorine and the birth control pills and the heart medication that just gets peed in and recycled. And because if you go to that website, it'll show you what's all in your water, in the tap water. So now we actually distill our drinking water. And people are like, well, you're gonna be lacking minerals. I'm like, well, that's why we take a mineral supplement. Because I'd rather have clean water and add minerals back in. And it's been interesting. I've gone without the minerals and my body doesn't like that, so you definitely have to do that, but at least you're getting clean water. So, I mean, if it's really easy to just have a spill somewhere, a train derailment, how do you know it's not going to go into our groundwater? And like, I just think it would be safe than sorry.
How does the distiller take the chemicals and stuff out?
It works just like nature does. It evaporates it all. So all the bad stuff gets left in, and it uses like distillation methods. So it forces it into a steam, and all your particulates that are come in.
Just stay down, so it doesn't, that doesn't steam up, okay.
Nope, it won't. It's just like evaporation. Mother Nature, it makes distilled water for us every time it rains, until it falls through the chemical toxic. Remember, we were all gonna die, and the crops were gonna be in for acid rain back in the 90s. Remember that? Oh, I do, because that was gonna kill the crops, and that was our life. So we were gonna be bankrupt because of acid rain. Mother Earth kind of has a way of handling things. Truly is. It's us not to screw it up. So what do we got here? This is where it really hit home, because it hasn't. Okay, don't you think teenagers, they always do their thing? Like there's always a thing. Like it's always like, what right now is my son saying? He's not even a teenager. He's not. He's like lol, and I'm like, lol. He goes, yeah, laugh out loud. I'm like, just laugh. Or what is he saying? Bruh. And I'm like, bruh. I'm like, what, are you missing a bra? Like, what's bruh? He goes, it's like brother, like hey. And I'm like, bruh, that, you know, that's cool. You know, like that, they have their things, right? So, I mean, there was gothic, you know, back in the days it was goth when I was in the 90s. I date myself. You know, it's like, oh, people are just looking for attention. But I don't think this is looking for attention. Like, what is going on in that person's body? And then I find out that these phthalates may increase this gender confusion because it messes up the hormones. And if you're in your early formative years and you are not producing testosterone, or it is being changed, and they have found this, I'm going down to the bottom right there, that these environmental, here, EDS is our environment, it was in the previous page and I forgot it. Endocrine disrupting hormones, there we go, that's what it means. They affect prenatal growth, thyroid, glucose, obesity, puberty, and fertility. Their effects are mediated through epigenetic mechanisms. Epigenetics was like a big breakthrough like 20 years ago. What does that mean? It means we are not our DNA. So 20 to 30% of us is our DNA. How tall we grew, color of our eyes, our hair color. But the rest of it is epigenetics. What does that mean? It means that your body, just think I have these antennas. So imagine I have just all these receptors. I have heat and cold receptors. You can just think like little antennas outside my body, even though they're not there. Think of them like an antenna, and they're sensing what is happening in the environment. What is happening, and we're going to turn genes on and off depending on what the environmental clue is. That's epigenetics. It means that, oh, and that's what drives me a little nuts about, oh, I can get tested and I have this cancer gene, so I'm going to cut off my boobs. No, it's epigenetics. It's what your body in the environment is telling you to either turn off or turn on. So I will say it's not, they want to make it your genetics because then it's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault. It just is what it is. And I'm like, no, I think your body's smarter than that. And it will do that if there's things here. And what really got me is these endocrine disruptors are linked to intersex variation in animals. It makes boys girls and girls boys. You know, there's worms that change sex. There's animals that do that, but humans shouldn't. And so as I've learned more about this, and I'm like, oh, these poor kids, no wonder why. I think they are feeling what they're feeling because of their hormones not being balanced, which is sad. It is truly sad because then we don't even want to get into the school and government and parents and the whole thing, and it's really confusing. So we want to keep our children healthy. Because if we don't reproduce, we're in a bad way. China knows this. They've dropped the one-child rule. When I was growing up, you could only have one, and then there's all these little girls that were given away for adoption because they wanted the boy, and they're in a bad place. They're just trying to recover, believe it or not, even though there's billions of people over there. So Let's talk a little bit about forever chemicals. These are PFAS sources. So paints, nonstick cookware, the fast food packaging. You can see a lot of restaurants are doing now the brown paper bag stuff. I've seen the straws instead of plastic now. They're agave. They're made from agave. My son said, he goes, Mom, these are made from agave. I think they even taste like it. I'm like, you do not drink tequila, son. Like, I don't know why you're saying that, you know. Anyway, I was kind of like, he said that. I'm like, how do you know what agave tastes like? So shampoos, so you can just turn it over. In fact, I told my son, I'm like, you know you're gonna be corrupted forever. And he goes, I know, Mom, it's okay. I said, okay, just as long as you don't forget what I taught you. We had to run, he had camp, and he had to run, he forgot to pack a snack, and I'm like, ooh man, blood sugar, you know, like he's swimming, karate, and camp. That's a big day, 10 hours gone, you need some food. And so we ran in there, we grabbed some bars real quick, and then I'm like, what's in those bars? I never bought those bars before, and it was soy. And I went, oh, dude. He goes, what? I go, it's soy. He goes, oh, you're kidding me. I go, what's the next one? Is there a different one? Those are the Luna bars. And I was like, damn. Meat stick it is. Get some meat sticks out. Like, we use meat sticks a lot. So, because, again, there's no glyphosate on the grains. You know, that NutriBars, all the grain stuff. If it's not organic, it's sprayed because it's oats, wheat, durum, corn. That's all sprayed with Roundup if it's not organic. And then even if it's organic, yeah. And then don't even, yeah, I know. So the best thing we do is we use a lot of meat sticks. So anyway, read the back of the packaging, and then you'll know. I mean, you'll just know that if you see stuff like that, you're like, yeah, next, find something else. So again, I think this was kind of redundant, but it was a different slide. It affects everyone. It affects everyone, and there's altered metabolisms. There's all the things that maybe each and every one of us, you're like, yeah, that was me, or I know my girlfriend, you know, everybody knows someone that's like that. So what can we do to, oh yes, I couldn't get off this. Glyphosate. I love my father. He's an honest man, and they're just told what the people that sell the stuff tell them. And I remember when glyphosate or Roundup came out, Roundup Ready plants means you can spray your crop, they won't die, but everything else does. And to me, that never made sense to me. I went, that can't be good for us, Dad. He goes, oh yeah, they told us we could drink it and bathe in it and we'd be fine. And I'm like, well, I'm not drinking that stuff, and I'm not gonna bathe in it. But what it does, it's a neurotoxin. It affects normal cell development because that's how it kills the bugs that eat the plants, because it implodes their gastric system, okay? And then there's herbicide, there's other things that they mix, right? Well, do you know that you have more bugs inside you than cells? Your gut is mostly bacteria. And if that kills that, then what's it doing to you? I mean, it's not you, it's not your cell, but we have symbiotic relationships with our gut and our gut bacteria and funguses and all the stuff. So, that is really interesting. Has anybody ever been to Italy, maybe France, eaten some really, do you ever hear people who are like, oh my God, I'm gluten-free here, and gluten-free and soy-free and nut-free and the free thing, because they can't eat anything because they're so toxic that they can't even handle a little bit of toxicity. That's what it is. It's layers of toxicity built up, and then their allergies flare up, and then they can't breathe, and then it's just a mess. And then all of a sudden they go to Europe and they can eat the bread. Have you ever heard of that? Like, that happened to me. I'm like, oh my God, it's so good, I can't stop, and I gained 10 pounds, but it was amazing. My gut didn't hurt, because they can't use Roundup on their crops. So if I'm gonna buy pasta, I'll buy Italian pasta. If I'm gonna drink wine, I'll buy Argentinian wine or Italian wine, because there's no glyphosate in it, so less of the poison. Atrazine is another one. You can see that there too. Those are the references there. So, take-home message. I'm sorry it's not a more exciting slide, but they're not just somewhere, sometime, maybe some place, they're everywhere. And they're more and more around us, and more people will experience symptoms, even if they maintain a healthy diet and lifestyle, due to exposure from this, such as water products, public travel, needy kids, I like that. We must not only focus on detoxifying those who seek our help, but advocate for everyone's health, as we are all exposed and at risk. Detox can no longer be just a cool protocol to use. It has to be a lifestyle habit, because we are constantly bombarded with environmental toxins. It just is. It was kind of a sad day, and I was like, I know I keep going on these stories, and I'm like, how many times? We got 10 minutes maybe. I didn't start my 35. I'm good. I'm really good. We're doing have some work done on our house, and they painted, and I'm like, open the windows, turn on the fan, and then when they were done painting, I said, you guys did a great job. And I'm like, how do you work in that? Because I'm like, oh, it is toxic down here. They have the respirators. We got respirators on. Meanwhile, they're covered in paint. You ever the sprayers?
Yeah.
And then we started visiting, and they found out that I was a chiropractor, and then one guy is wearing a strip over his nose. I'm like, is that because you have breathing issues, or did you break your nose? He goes, bar fight, because he's a pretty beefy guy. And he goes, both. And I'm like, oh. So I'm not being nosy, I'm just like, you do realize these are environmental toxins. In fact, I'm doing a talk on this. This is a couple days ago. And they're like, well, what do you do again? And I said, well, I do nutrition response testing. They're like, I don't know what that is. I'm like, basically, I test your body by using muscle testing to determine, is there a chemical overload? Is there maybe bacteria? There can be anything. Bacteria, fungus, even parasites. We all deworm our dogs and cats and horses, right? We are no different than them. So I know that's a shocker. That was coming on those what? And we let them kiss us and sleep with us. And I love my dog. I've had cats, dogs. I have a dog right now, and he gets parathrough. He does. He doesn't like it, but that's too bad. So there are. I went down a rabbit hole there. Sorry about that. But it is so important. And I started talking with them to have the conversation. They're like, my son, because everybody's always more worried about their children than they are them. My son, he's 3, and and I'm like, well, and you think of the generations getting sicker and sicker. You've maybe seen that in your life. And the poor little kids are just sick all the time. Or delayed learning, or what have you. And it's because it's a neurotoxicity. Their brain is inflamed, and when your brain is inflamed, you do not learn, and you regress. So there are many things that can do that, but I do think that chemicals, aluminum, formaldehyde, all those things, they're in our foods, but they're also in other things. I'll let you to think and ponder what those other medical things might be, which was a shock, because a lot of medical doctors think that vaccines just contain a dead bacteria and some saline solution. It doesn't. There is a lot of scary, nasty things in there that I think are harming our children as well. And that's not a vaccine talk, but it's like, we can't keep seeing what's happening and then know that aluminum's bad here, but it's good in here. It doesn't make sense. And we have to go back to using common sense. So, roadmap to health. Now, we do nutrition response testing, and I think it's critical that each person get individually tested, because each person is different. Sierra has different needs than I do, different needs everybody. And so when we do testing, we can have a specific outcome. We can find a specific outcome and have a specifically tailored program for each person. Because have you walked into a health? I just for giggles, I usually don't go down this aisle in Sprouts, and it was like a maze of all the supplements, and it's like, well, I need one for my immune system, I need one for this, and I'm like, you could be taking 50 different supplements. Wouldn't it be nice to know which one does your body need right now? That's what we do. And I've been in practice for 20 years, and I used to just say, oh, we just need to do the standard process detox. We just need to do this cleanse, because everybody, once a year we should just do a cleanse because it's the hippie cool thing to do. And I'm like, no. And then some people would react really bad. They'd get really sick, or their hot flashes would get really worse. And it's because they're toxic on a different level, and we need to understand what phase they are. We can't just throw a detox at somebody. We have to know and test where their body is at. So real quickly, we're not gonna spend a ton of time on this, but energy is the most important thing to have. If you don't have energy, your body, it's kind of like that new mom that just has a new baby. You just get through your day, right? The house may not be perfect, there's food, the children are safe, and we just, one step. My sister has a new baby. She goes, Becky, I just take one day at a time. I'm like, don't worry, it'll get easier. She goes, I know, I got 2 other kids, I know. But we have to have energy to handle that that detoxification, right? And if you don't have that, you'll feel terrible. You'll have detoxing symptoms. You'll have headaches, migraines, you'll be tired. That's not fun, because your symptoms are telling your body something's going on. Second phase, we have to make sure that is gut and immune health. Then we go to whole body immune support. Then we do some deep systemic detoxes and even deeper immune support. So that's kind of the phase I have through people. So when we start a new patient in, we're gonna just say, well, what does your body need right now? What fires do we need to put out? What things do we need to kill? Do we need to drain? Do we need to help? And then support. And so once we do that, then we can move through the phases of care. How long does that take, Doc? I could hear it. I could hear it. It depends. Your body, every 90 days is cell turnover. So sometimes if you're detoxing or draining, or you have a fungal overgrowth, or what have, people come in with the craziest things that are like, I don't know, my doctors don't know, but I got this, and I've been on this, and this, and this. You get the picture. You got to get the whole picture of what's going on. But one of the biggest things that we start with, I'm like, are you pooping? Because if you're not pooping, and consistently, daily, sometimes 2 to 3 times a day, then you're backed up. And your colon gets sluggish, and what happens? We reabsorb all the toxins that our liver has worked so hard to try to get out. And that gets reabsorbed in a lot of headaches and migraine sufferers. And we can see that on x-ray. I'm like, there's all your supplements, and you are constipated. Like, when's the last time you pooped? Oh, I poop every day. I'm like, what, rabbit turds? You know, like, and then, you know, the bowels distended, and it's just crazy what we see. So once we get that and make sure that's moving, we have to move up to the next level and make sure our liver and bile ducts are clear. That is how we digest our fats and our enzymes in our gut. And it's like, ooh, I ate something, don't feel so good. That's maybe an indication that liver and gallbladder is not working so good. And we test that. And we can test it and we can see, is that good? Or does it need some support? Does it need some drainage? Then we can move up to lymphatic. You see the people, their right leg is just all swollen? That's a lymphatic blockage. Could be a parasite blocking like elephantitis, that's a parasite. Malaria is a parasite. But one leg, or maybe they have systemic swelling. They're just, I'm not fat, I'm just fluffy, right? We see some of those patients too, and that's a lymphatic system problem. So we have to work up and make sure. Then we go to the organs and tissues and finally make sure the cells are working properly. And it's a process. When I wanted to get pregnant, I remember I fired all my medical doctors and I went to a DO. He's in town here, Dr. Mallory. He's a great guy. I refer a lot of patients to him. They handle thyroid, but they still treat the symptoms. But he listened to me, and I said, I need to get off of this synthetic, and I want to go on a more natural, because my poor thyroid's been dead for since I was 10. Not dead. I shouldn't talk that way. I love you, thyroid. I love you, thyroid. But we're healing from an injury, right? And so he listened to me. He goes, give me a year to balance you. I'm like, a year? Like, my time is ticking. I'm gonna be 40. I don't, And guess what? It was a year and 2 months till we got pregnant with Elliot. And so that was our blessing, and we never had any more children. And then surprise, Madeline came. So we have a little 3-year-old now and a 9.5-year-old. So I thought I was going through menopause. So I was like, oh, is this menopause? Don't have I was like, this is great, but I feel like crap. Surprise. So that was fun, right before COVID hit. So that was even funnier, because we were shut down in March. And then in April, I came back and I had this bump, and they're like, I go, no, it wasn't fat. I go, that's a baby. They're like, oh my God, I was 47. I'll be 50 this year. So anything is possible when you detoxify, support your system, and you can actually reverse aging and disease. And I'm like, it's wonderful to be healthy again. I had horrible allergies to the point It's not cool to be adjusting people and snot running out of your nose and you want to rip out the back of your throat and mice. And you're sneezing 100 times a day because the allergies were so bad. And that's just, again, another toxic level, because if I'd have a freshly squeezed margarita with my own sweet and sour mix, no high fructose corn syrup, but then I'd go out in the garden and then I'd add in maybe some not so good food, and then I'd be out, the toxicity, my body couldn't handle it, and then I'd have an allergy attack, or I'd get sick, or I'd get an infection. And so your toxicity, you're like, oh, she got, I don't know, some type of skin broke out. And it's like, oh, it's this hand, foot, and mouth disease. I'm like, no, it's just a toxicity that your body can't handle anymore. So it's letting you know something's wrong. So what's cool is when we can go through and we can test what it is, even on children. We don't need an arm to push on. We can use a surrogate tester, or I can use different ways of testing. That I can even do testing over the phone, believe it or not. I have actually people in North Dakota that I consult with, and they're getting great results. And they're like, I don't know what you're doing, Becky, but just what stuff do I need? Because I'm feeling amazing now. So I sound brilliant, but I'm just testing their bodies to what they need. Because we're all energy. So this is just phase 1, phase 2 is the same thing. It's just more deeper type of thing. And remember what I said in the beginning. I said, you just have to pick maybe 1 or 2 things to change, because we talked about a lot of different things. I mean, if you went out and just changed all your cookware and installed a whole house, it's like cha-ching, and now, but it's like just start somewhere. Because to live healthy, and this is from Dr. Jack Wolfson, he's actually our book of the month, or will be. We have a book that we're going to be featuring. He is a natural cardiologist. And he married a chiropractor, and she showed him the error of his ways. But he is one of the few, and he gave up a very big, prestigious cardiology practice. And now he's here in Colorado, and he sees tons of natural, beautiful ways using the products that I use. So that's why I said, when I was at this seminar, and I'm rubbing shoulders with the MDs, the DCs, the DOs, the massage therapists, there's more. There's like your naturopathic doctors, your homeopathic doctors, and just very smart, intelligent people. And they're like, no, the products that we use through this company, some of them, I use Standard Process, I use Cellcore, I use a handful of different products because they all have their own thing. But it makes a big difference to address the root cause, to detoxify safely, and also to add life to our years and years to our life. So I always say, you can maybe just start with some of the things. And like, well, where would I start, Dr. B? What do I do now? That's just so overwhelming. You gave me so many things to do. I'm like, maybe start by just getting tested. And what does your body need right now? And then let's start the journey together. So in the past, I'd always sell a cleanse or this or that, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything like that now. I want people to understand that it's a journey of where you're starting and where do you want to go, and what do you want to address. And so how do you get started? That's usually a consultation, an exam, and then I do the testing. It takes about 45 minutes maybe. These are 2 of my patients. They're pros. They could probably test me. But it's wonderful to see the results that have come out of healthy living and getting tested. It makes a big difference in how you're, and it's fun to do that, fun to see that. It's fun to see children turn around. I'll tell you a story that she hasn't given me the testimonial. I can't names. But she's a young little girl. She's in 1st grade, and she was eating non-food items. Erasers, metal pencils, metal cat litter, stuff. It's not good. A lot of behavioral things, not doing well in school, can't sit, you just have ADD, ADHD, and give him some drugs. And the mom threw a fit, because she has an ADHD son that's older. She's like, she does not have what he has. She brought her in, I believe we're on week 6, and she had a scratchy, itchy pee-pee. And when girls are down there, you don't need to be scratching that. And she's miserable. And so we handled the fungus first, And then now, she just told me last week, she goes, there's none of this anymore. And I'm like, oh, got it. She doesn't want to say too much in front of her, because then it's kind of reinforcing the negative, and you don't want to do that. No, she's like, wonderful. School's out, they're doing something different with school. So that's that emotional component, nutritional component. And she's like, I need to get her adjusted. I'm like, yeah, you do. So I go, but all in due time. All in due time. So that's really exciting. I could tell you more stories that I've been helping patients for 25 years. We have amazing stories. And then the nutritional component just adds another level of interesting stuff. Is all I'm gonna say. Whether it's parasites or but it's all about people starting a path on their journey and wanting something more, and then having great sleep and having great libido and having great digestion and not being scared of food or not running to the bathroom because you're gonna poop yourself. Like we've had those with colitis type cases. And so it's really amazing when we can test them, give them what they need, and let the body heal. So that's what I challenge you to do, is if you're interested, sign up with Sierra, get on the books for me to test you, and then we can develop a program. So it's pretty simple. It usually doesn't take too long, usually 10-15 minutes to test, and I test people sometimes weekly, and then they get to be dismissed monthly, and it's a beautiful thing. So typically my charge, I believe, I didn't even know what my charge was, because we have just really been working internally with our current patients. And so I really haven't gone out into the wild west of people who don't know us. So I've been testing my chiropractic patients, and we always just say, there's no charge for the consultation or the exam, just come on in and let me see if I can help you. And so I'm extending the same offer. If you're interested, and it's like, if I can help you, I'll tell you. If it's just not right for you at this time, then it's just not right for you at this time, no hard feelings. But the people who have stuck on the journey have had amazing results. So hopefully that you have something that you gleaned. Check out that website that I told you. You're gonna be shocked at what's in our water. And this is why I do distilled water now. But hate me all you want, but we have both. We do both. But a toxin is still a toxin, and there's a lot going on. And I want to thank you for your time today. I want to thank my patients for coming, and Dr. John's, I know, we're a practice here, we see everybody, but I'm not here as much as because I have kids at home and I value them. And so I want to thank you for your time, and thank you for listening and taking a chance at something different perhaps. All right?